Or did you want to play music or something?
Review 1, Introduction. Beginning with today, we'll have a series of review periods. Each of them will cover 5 of the ideas already presented, starting with the first and ending with the 50th. There will be a few short comments after each of the ideas, which you should consider in your review. In the practice periods, the exercises should be done as follows. Begin the day by reading the 5 ideas with the comments included. Thereafter, it is not necessary to follow any particular order in considering them, though each one should be practiced at least once. Devote 2 minutes or more to each practice period, thinking about the idea and the related comments after reading them over.
Maybe rendering is the right word.
Yeah.
All right, go on.
Do this as often as possible during the day. If any one of the 5 ideas appeals to you more than the others, concentrate on that one. At the end of the day, however, be sure to review all of them once more.
It is not necessary to cover the comments that follow each idea either literally or thoroughly in the practice periods. Try to emphasize the central point and think about it as part of your review of the idea to which it relates. After you have read the idea and the related comments, the exercises should be done with your eyes closed and when you are alone in a quiet place if possible.
This is emphasized for practice periods at your stage of learning. It will be necessary, however, that you learn to require no special settings in which to apply what you have learned. You will need your learning most in situations that appear to be upsetting, rather than those that already seem to be calm and quiet. The purpose of your learning is to enable you to bring the quiet with you and to heal distress and turmoil. This is not done by avoiding them and seeking a haven of isolation for yourself. Somehow I forgot that was really the intention in the course, is to be able to take the calm and bring it into your living situations. I guess I knew that, but it's good to have that as a review and reminder.
This is symbolically emphasized in the course by the simple statement, there is no world.
Yeah. And if there's no world, why am I getting upset? Yeah, I know.
You will yet learn that peace is part of you and requires only that you be there to embrace any situation in which you are. And finally, you will learn that there is no limit to where you are, so that your peace is everywhere, as you are.
You will note that for review purposes, some of the ideas are not given in quite their original form. Use them as they are given here. It is not necessary to return to the original statements, nor to apply the ideas as was suggested then. We are now emphasizing the relationships among the first 50 of the ideas we have covered and the cohesiveness of the thought system to which they are leading you.
So that answers your question, Dan.
Yeah, I just realized that you don't want to go back and just do the lesson that before. You want to actually concentrate on what he's saying now, because he's looking at the overall relationships between the lessons.
Yeah, so he doesn't say you can't return to the original statements, but it does somewhat contradict the purpose of this lesson.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you may want to go back, but what he's trying to do is something different than what the original lesson was.
Yes,
And
hopefully, hopefully you got it the first time around, and now you're going to get this one this time. And I feel like we've done a pretty good job so far. So
yeah, we've really taken time to really be with each one of the lessons and how it hits us, and I have practiced more of the lessons than I ever have of all the times I've called myself a course student.
yeah, okay. So now let's start with the first one, and the first lesson 51, which covers 5 ideas. And we'll take turns and we'll just go through all 5 first. And then we'll come back and we'll do one at a time in a more discursive way. So, lesson 51, the review for today covers the following ideas. 1, nothing I see means anything. The reason this is so is that I see nothing, and nothing has no meaning. It is necessary that I recognize this, that I may learn to see. What I think I see now is taking the place of vision. I must let it go by realizing it has no meaning, so that vision may take its place.
2, I have given what I see all the meaning it has for me. I have judged everything I look upon, and it is this and only this that I see. This is not vision. It is merely an illusion of reality, because my judgments have been made quite apart from reality. I am willing to recognize the lack of validity in my judgments because I want to see. My judgments have hurt me, and I do not want to see according to them.
I do not understand anything. How could I understand what I see when I have judged it amiss? What I see is the projection of my own errors of thought. I do not understand what I see because it is not understandable. There is no sense in trying to understand it. But there is every reason to let it go and make room for what can be seen and understood and loved. I can exchange what I see now for this merely by being willing to do so. It is not this a better choice than the one I made before? I like that. I can exchange what I see now for this merely by being willing to do so.
Well, if you like that, then when we get done with this section, and if you'd like to discuss this one, you're certainly welcome to choose it.
All right, we'll see.
4, these thoughts do not mean anything. The thoughts of which I am aware do not mean anything because I am trying to think without God. What I call my thoughts are not my real thoughts. My real thoughts are the thoughts I think with God. I am not aware of them because I have made my thoughts to take their place. I am willing to recognize that my thoughts do not mean anything and to let them go. I choose to have them be replaced by what they were intended to replace. My thoughts are meaningless, but all creation lies in the thoughts I think with God.
5, I am never upset for the reason I think. I am never upset for the reason I think, because I am constantly trying to justify my thoughts. I am constantly trying to make them true. I make all things my enemies so that my anger is justified and my attacks are warranted. I have not realized how much I have misused everything I see by assigning this role to it. I have done this to defend a thought system that has hurt me and that I no longer want. I'm willing to let it go.
That's kind of funny. We got a whole page for one 2-letter word.
Go. Neem Karol Baba was always saying, go, go, get out of here. He wants us to take the stuff and go with it.
Yes. Anyone who would like to begin is welcome to pick one of these lessons to discuss.
Well, the reason I commented on that willingness, it's interesting how he sets up the beginning that
Excuse me.
you're not.
Is that the
You're
one
not,
you want to talk about?
well, one of the ones.
Okay, why don't you start then? You can start here. This one, number 3.
All right. Well, the reason I stopped and to reread it, it really hit me that yeah, we don't understand. We're not really seeing. We don't. We really don't have the vision for what is. And at the same time, he's saying that don't despair. That if I have the willing, it just struck me how powerful that is. If I can exchange what I see now for this merely by being willing to do so. So it's like emphasizing my really wanting to be with God and the unite with God. I mean, even though I may not see what really there is to see, it's the willingness. Always keeping that before is one of the keys to exchange what I'm caught into now for what are the possibilities for correcting what I'm not getting clear right now. So it's a good way to remind myself if I'm stuck in something, instead of feeding doubt, to come back and keep affirming my willingness to be in whatever I am that I want to get out of, and realize that it can be exchanged. It's just like I can choose peace instead. I could really. There's no reason to be caught in my fear. It comes back the willingness to keep turning to God allows the possibility to exchange what I'm seeing now for what is, to have the vision of really what is. So I like how he's setting us up in the first early lessons, not to put too much belief and emphasis on what we see, and it's such a life affirming teaching. Even as he's doing that, and say, don't worry about it, it can be exchanged. What you really, even if you're not there now, just always keeping before you the willingness to want to change, to want to experience God, will keep you going through the whole thing. So that kind of just jumped out of me when we were doing it, because I guess the first couple of lessons I've always wanted to run through, because it's saying whatever you see, you don't understand, you're not seeing anything, none of it's real, and so forth. But while he's also saying that, he's really pointing us, hey, don't get upset. All that can be exchanged and corrected and let go of, and you could have another experience. So And I didn't really always catch that on first reading, so it's really nice to see that spelled out that way. All right, well, that's all I really wanted to say about that. So
Okay, Dan, thanks for taking that on. Michael, do you have one that you'd like to discuss, or?
Let me see them. So let's start closer to the beginning.
All right.
Okay, the first one looks good. The nothing I see means anything, because the meaning and the understanding is apart from the perception. And when my body sees something, it's a neutral thing, it's a seeing. And then my mind acts on that to give it meaning to me, and that meaning is most likely a judgment, and that seeing is not vision, because if it were vision, it means that I would be consulting with my higher spirit to tell me what it is I'm seeing. Because in the absence of doing that, I have found from experience that sometimes the first meaning I get from what I'm perceiving is not accurate, and I can make mistakes and look back on it and say, I didn't understand that right. So process then is to be slower at deriving understanding by looking within and saying, what does this mean, so I can have the vision to see it correctly.
Right. Okay. Thanks, Michael.
Sure.
Let me pick one out here. Okay, I'll take the second one. I have given what I see all the meaning it has for me. I have judged everything I look upon. And it is this and only this I see. This is not vision. It is merely an illusion of reality, because my judgments have been made quite apart from reality. I am willing to recognize the lack of validity in my judgments because I want to see. My judgments have hurt me, and I do not want to see according to them. So every time I defend myself, for example, I've already misperceived, misinterpreted what I'm perceiving as an attack. And that's what it means by my judgments have hurt me. So that completely throws me off balance. Now I'm defending myself against something which doesn't exist and isn't there. Nothing, isn't it? Like the first one says, I see nothing and nothing has no meaning. Well, recently I've been thinking about some events that happen in the order. And there's one that really stood out for me, which was I was walking with another brother, and it was close to the time that we were going to go on our respective missions, and we had our gray suits on, and we're coming up to 20, and we're about a couple blocks away, coming up the hill, having gotten off the bus, or well, what they call it was a trolley, and we're walking up the hill to Steiner Street, and lo and behold, there's another brother out there, and I'm not sure if he's in clerics. I think he's in civilian clothes, and facing him is a young black man holding a gun, and it's obviously a stick-up, an attempted stick-up, and the brother is he's got his hands up and it's like he's trying to ward off this evil experience, and he's in distress. So, you know, Gene and I are looking at this, and the funny thing was that I didn't see it. I mean, so I didn't see it the way it looked. So I was not giving it the literal meaning that my perception would have it be. So I didn't see it as, actually, I didn't see it as real. You know, the stick up and everything wasn't real. I didn't see it from fear. I saw it from love, and so I knew that that nothing was wrong. But I also could see that Tom, the brother that was getting held up, he thought it was real, and he was pretty distressed. And so I told Tom that we'll take over from here, and you can just go home, go back to the brother house. And then I placed myself in front of this guy with the gun, and I, you know, so I said, Tom, you just take off. So this guy with the gun, it turns out he was just as afraid as Tom was. He was pretty freaked out by this situation too. Everything was changing quickly. And I told the guy with the gun, I said, you can go now. This is all, everything's fine. It's all been taken care of, and you're free to go. And I said, we're going to leave too. So just relax and take it easy. We'll see you later. And we just are walking away. Well, Gene was a little bit, well, he sort of was still looking at the illusion, you know. And so he was back and walking backwards and holding his hands up, trying to calm this guy down, but he was really just trying to calm himself down. And I just turned away and walked away. And so we're walking toward the brother house, and I hear a click behind me. This guy has pulled the trigger, and it just clicked. There wasn't anything there. So then I hear another one, and I turn around and look, and the guy's just like totally freaked out and runs away up the hill. So it's like my vision was telling me this isn't real, right? And I was just blessed enough that I was paying attention to that instead of to the illusion in front of me. And that's what it's always like. Every situation that we see. There's always the, the perception, what your eyes show you. But if you think it's real, you've already misjudged it because it's always symbolic. And so the situation that I'm describing, for example, is symbolic of fear. And so it's got a real shaky foundation, I can easily be thrown off balance, transformed, or, made real and then turn into a conflict, which is also not real. Because in God's mind, that doesn't exist. There isn't any conflict. And if there's no conflict in God's mind, then there can't be any conflict anywhere because that's God's mind is all there really is. So we misinterpret things all the time because our judgments are quite apart from reality.
That's a beautiful story. You
And that
needed to
was-
share that one. You needed to share that one with Father Blight, and he would have been proud of you.
Well, I always assumed that he knew everything that was happening.
Well, maybe.
But you're right. I didn't talk to him about that and many other events, but I always felt thankful in my heart to him for the experiences that I was having and felt that he always had my back.
Was the brother that you were with, was that Gene Teitelbaum or was it another
Yeah,
Gene?
Gene Teitelbaum.
Oh, I loved him.
Me
He
too.
was one of the people that always made me laugh and always had a really, really good, loving vibe about him.
He sure did. He was like so innocent. He was another Gemini.
What's that?
Another Gemini.
Oh, I didn't know that. I just really I just really, felt so at home in his presence.
Yeah.
I just really, really liked him. But could I say something too, or are you finished, or I'm not exactly sure how you want to
On the
work.
last lesson? Yeah, go ahead.
What's that?
On this lesson?
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
Um, I had sort of a breakthrough in realizing what I was seeing was not really what everybody else was seeing, and I really caught. I mean, my story isn't anywhere as dramatic as yours, but it was like a big change in my life when the realization of what was what's happening. Well, I was in this. There was we would do it. The brothers at Kripalu. We had well, I forget his name. He'd come over and he'd give a free Taekwondo class. And early on, we're going through the katas, the forms, and he says to me, I was doing a form that your foot was not really behind your front foot, and I said, yes, it was. And then everybody on the line there looked at me and laughed. And then I really had this real strong breakthrough that I'm being so defensive that I am totally justifying that myself without even being able to see what other people are seeing. I'm feeling so much anxiety and guilt that my first response is always to defend myself, and that I'm interpreting everything as an attack instead of correction. Although I didn't have those words, I really, really understood, and it really changed me, and it changed me over a long period too, that I've become less defensive when somebody like offers what I would hear everything as criticism instead of ever hearing it as at least correction. Of course, the course invites you to go a little further and see it as a cry for love. I have to admit I'm not totally there, but I have changed really significantly in not believing even and less reverting to being defensive every time something is said to me that's critical, that I would always interpret as critical. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
So
No, that,
it comes out of this, lesson of I have given it meaning. I'm taking the situation and not seeing the situation. I mean, not having any vision of the situation because I'm so caught in my interpretation that I just don't see what is.
yeah, and you're also emphasizing the key that makes it change the vision is your willingness. I am willing to recognize the lack of validity in my judgments because I want to see. So um, you've had an example you've experienced where you realized that because of your judgments, you didn't see, and you want to see. So you're willing to let those judgments go.
Yeah, it's the heart is opening, and so willingness to see isn't just some catchphrase in my head. It's really putting myself in an uncomfortable situation and honoring the feedback without immediately pushing it away because my ego feels threatened. And there's a willingness, even if I don't quite get it. I was willing to look at that, and I think the thing that's been a grace to me is that I'm not always the quickest guy to, really see into things, but I always have the willingness to look back, like at the end of the day or whatever, how I'm behaving, and really see how crazy I've been and how I've ended up believing stuff that is so untrue and have gotten caught in that. And I don't want that. I want to, blossom into like a full loving being.
Right.
So I think unconsciously why that when I share that thing about willingness to turn to God, willingness to actually see that it can work as an exchange for me. Unconsciously, I've been doing that, and I think I really have some words to actually describe what I've been doing, and really see, yeah, hey, that's why yoga for me is staying in the uncomfortableness of a situation till you till you're ready to see it in a different way.
Yeah. So the practice that we do every day, meditation, whatever practice it is, we are surrendering our will um, to God through the form of the practice, and
Yeah.
it's practice for real life situations like we've been talking about. And the more that you do that, the more that you bring your mind to God, willingly surrender and open yourself to the experience of God's presence within you, the more habitual it becomes. And so then you start to see things as they really are with the mind of God.
Yeah, one of the best things I got from Kripalu is that you're not doing the yoga so you have a flexible body. You're doing the yoga so you can meet the discomfort and the pain and the difficulty of whatever you're with, and to kind of greet it with the same equanimity of mind that you can be in this uncomfortable situation without immediately seeking the escape of going away from it. And that allows you to go deeper and to open your heart and for it to transform and change for you, which is really the same thing I'm getting from these lessons, that if you really practice, we practice it in meditation, but we're practicing it so when we have interactions in the world, we just don't go into automatic unconscious response that we've been doing ever since we've been listening to our ego and believe what the ego has created as the real world when it isn't.
Okay, we got a couple more. Number 4, these thoughts do not mean anything. And number 5, I am never upset for the reason I think.
One of my favorites. I love that 5th lesson, by the way.
Would you like to talk about this one?
I don't know if I had anything more to add, but the thing that when I go back and somebody asks me, if I think about, well, what were those early lessons about? The first one that always jumps in my mind. I'm never upset for the reasons I think I am. But what I've also discovered is that any kind of conditional emotional reaction is really not based on what is. And the reasons I'm giving it is all based on the misperception of how the ego interprets the world, which is not what's real. And it's not only just about anger, it's about fear, it's about guilt, it's about everything, every emotion that well, at least for me, every negative emotions. I'm less sure about positive emotions. I guess I don't question them because I like them. But it's the negative emotions. I realize that it's like it's saying here, I'm trying to justify it. I'm trying to find reasons. It's like one of the phrases that used to be in my mind before the course. Yeah, I know you're not supposed to get angry, but I know there's such a thing as righteous anger. Look at all these horrible things that people are doing. My goodness, we just supposed to lay down and let us walk on it. It's just like it was before the course, and I always used to say to myself, well, if I was living in Nazi Germany, would I want to speak out or not? Obviously, all this evil is being done. I think there's a certain amount of righteous anger to address this, and I really feel like Jesus is giving me the bigger picture here, to try to think about how I've created the world that I'm reacting to, and have given it all this meaning, and realizing this is still in some sense not real. It's still the dream world. That's why I love your story, Michael Wilson. Is like something that we believe so firmly was a frightening situation, when you weren't engulfed in the fear and responding to it in as it wasn't a frightening situation. It was really such a powerful thing, the
Yeah, and it was just real simple because I was only following my guidance, and I could see with vision that there was nothing to fear there.
yeah, but it's still something that you weren't overcome by fear, because it's such a conditioned response. Oh my God, my body's going to be shot and I'm going to be dead or something. It's
Exactly.
amazing response of presence.
So this morning, I was reading again in The Hero with a Thousand Faces, and it recounted the section I was on is called Master of the Two Worlds. And basically, he shared two magnificent stories, beginning with the transfiguration of Christ, and then what you might also call transfiguration of Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita. And I'd like to revisit the Bhagavad Gita for this, because on the one hand, you're, for example, talking about being in Nazi Germany, and the whole thing is related in your discussion to anger, as it is right here. But as you can recall from the life that's recounted about Jesus, there were times when he certainly appeared to be angry. And in the discussion, and he was certainly critical of things that were going on around him in the world he was in. So one cannot say that you're supposed to just sit in one place. as the master of two worlds, spinning on whatever. Um, so, and that was the advice that was given to Arjuna. So, what happens in the Bhagavad Gita is that because of Arjuna's complete love and total devotion to Krishna, Krishna reveals himself as the master of the universe. And everything in the universe is seen from creation to destruction. And so you might say that the vision he shows is magnificent and terrible. So and there is Arjuna standing in the field of battle between two forces, and his kin are on both sides, people that he loves. He's about to destroy, or at least that's his job. And he says, "I just can't do it."
Yeah, that's
Okay,
how it
so
opens.
that's one reaction, but it's not the one that he's called to do. And Krishna says, okay, so the feeling that Arjuna gets from looking at Krishna in his reality, complete and total reality, is one of complete transformation. And you could say that in that situation, one could very well feel completely exalted. And if your job was to go into battle, you would go into battle like a maniac because there was nothing to hold on to. All the terrible uh, imaginations that you might have, being your body being slaughtered and all that stuff, you've been shown to be just one great big illusion, one big nothing. As the
Big
first
movie.
as the first lesson says, it's one big nothing.
Yes. I'm glad you made that connection. One big nothing.
And so that's your dharma, okay? And in this world, what it comes down to is you have to do your dharma.
Right, that's what the Bhagavad Gita. You're unattached to the fruits of it, but you're doing things because it's your dharma to do it. But don't get attached to all the emotions that results of it. It's you're doing it from that service place. That's what you're called to do.
Right. And that was what Jesus demonstrated with his life.
Yeah.
And he demonstrated that there is no death.
Right.
And
The
so that's
anger.
the way, wait. So that's a way that we're meant to approach the events that we face in our lives.
Mhm.
If we approach them with fear, it's because we don't understand. We're misperceiving, and we're making nothing real.
Yeah, I'm just what I'm trying to do is still square the circle here with Jesus getting angry at the money changers and driving them out. Maybe there's a purity of Jesus sees that he needs to act, but it's not from the ego being threatened. It doesn't have the impurity of the personal identification. Maybe help me out here. I still struggle with the idea. Well, how does Jesus get angry in that situation where he drives out the money changers from the temple, knowing what he does, like Krishna, about that this is like some huge movie thing, and none of this stuff that's on just was one level is real. Um, so I'm trying to still um, share with you to see how you process that his having a reaction, because it's probably not the same reaction I would have if I saw money changers in a sacred place.
Okay. So the question here is justice. Here are the servants of God, um, and they're asking for the people to make sacrifice um, to them, basically, really. They're the ones that are profiting and benefiting, and they're the ones that are collaborating with the oppressors.
Yes, to have their position. That's true.
And so it's a completely unjust situation. And we know that God's justice sees everyone and everything equally, the same love, right? That's justice. And anything else is injustice. And that's what's behind the symbols that he's looking at. And you could say that he appears to be angry. Just as you could say that Arjuna rushing into battle and slaughtering everybody on the other side that he can get his hands on, you think he's angry, he's completely lost it. Well, that doesn't mean that that's what's really happening. That's perception.
Yes.
That's perception making the symbols real.
Yes. You're making a lot of sense.
So we're looking for is, what does it mean? Like Michael was saying in the first lesson, what's the meaning? That's what's real.
Yes.
So,
On the
go ahead, Michael.
on the story, to pick up shortly on that Arjuna story, and the Dharma bit. In our cases, our Dharma was to be sworn into the military and go to Vietnam, but we said no. I went to the thing, like I went to the, answered the call and went to where it was, I was at the aid station, and they said, okay, well, you're here and we're taking you and cross this line. And I said, I just stood there and said no. And you did something, but can address that in terms of Dharma and our reactions to the situation we were.
Yeah, but I don't know what you can have to say for yourself, but that was not my Dharma to go fight in Vietnam.
Either was it mine, because I said no.
Well, I mean, that's what the selective service said was our Dharma.
Yeah, so are you going to bow down to them?
I said no.
They're completely out of accord with life.
Right.
It's not your Dharma to be involved in that.
So my Dharma was to refuse.
That's what I did.
And I did
That's what I did.
I did it as a warrior, like you. I just said no.
I did it as a neurotic. I brought letters from my therapist, and they gave me a 4F that I was mentally unfit to fight. I said, "Oh, that's a really happy day for me."
That was a good one. That was like Arlo Guthrie.
Yeah, right.
Yep. It came so much out of the world that I was living in from an unconscious place with my background and all trying to integrate, my background and what I'm being exposed to in the university and the philosophy I'm studying and my own take. It just seemed, now that I look back on it, it just seems so perfect. It was just like just such the expression of what needed to be.
So anyway, that's the beauty of democracy, and that's the beauty of having a draft, because that always leaves it up to the people. If they say no, it's not going to happen.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
and so we thought it was such a great thing when they when they dropped the draft and hell, it had a standing army. But our forefathers knew that was the last thing. They had been living under a standing army under King George from Britain, and that was the last thing they wanted to see. And you can see where that led to. Has led to endless war. And so we no longer have a democracy. We have an oligarchy.
yeah. It's the thing about the draft, it made people aware that we're fighting these damn wars. And what happened is by having a professional army and creating a pool of people to draw on, like the people who have the least amount of economic opportunity because they're at the bottom of the capitalist pyramid. So for them, they feel like the only way they can get through their life is to join this organization that's basically, what's it doing? It's going into every country and trying to extract resources, and is functioning, and so they become part of that. But it's so much more real and so much more of a democracy where people have to say, oh, you're called to fight. Is that what I want to choose or not? It makes it a conscious decision. I really knew that I didn't want to participate in that Vietnam War because I had looked at it and I looked and studied it, and thank God I didn't have to go to Canada, but I didn't want to participate in it, and I had to work through a lot of stuff. Am I being a coward? Is I'm just thinking of my safety, and all kinds of things. But I'm glad, in some sense, I really had to make a decision, and I think we lost something when what kind of sneaks up, like people aren't being drafted, but are being directed by by forces to be absorbed into a standing army that seems out of our control now, because the reason we could have this war going on in Afghanistan and people, they can put it out of their mind because they don't know anybody, because they're in a different class of people. They don't know anybody who's fighting it, whereas everybody knew someone they were close to. I'm getting on my high horse here, but everyone knew someone who was being drafted into Vietnam, and it really fueled a tremendous protest. So the leaders of the country realized the way to do it is just not have a draft and just make it so the people at the bottom of the economic sphere who can't take any kind of really good positions, they're looking at it as a way out. So there's our standing army again, and no one cares about that we still have troops all over the world, and everybody can forget that, but it serves the defense industry. It serves the people who make arms and make profit out of it.
Well, just to sum up our discussion today and take a look at this last one that we haven't discussed, number 4, these thoughts do not mean anything. What I call my thoughts are not my real thoughts. My real thoughts are the thoughts I think with God. And that's really the basis for vision. And that's the purpose of practice, is that we practice thinking with God. Basically, that's what our meditation practice is. All the spiritual practices that we do are actually comes down to thinking with God.
Yeah, maybe that's why he spent so much time with the ego, so we could distinguish that when we know we're having thoughts of the ego, because that's exactly how the ego behaves. So we know that, and then perhaps that opens us to what it means thinking the same thoughts that God thinks.
But we're not aware of the thoughts that we
And
think with God because we've replaced them with our own thoughts. And it
Yes.
comes down to, as you discussed in the example of yoga, I'm willing to recognize my thoughts do not mean anything. So I use a somatic movement, and basically it's consciously um, releasing the tension in the muscles gradually, a little bit each day, so that
Beautiful.
and we put the tension there by and it's because we are looking at a world that isn't real, and that we have to quote defend what we think is ourselves against. Um, we carry a lot of tension in our bodies, and so we take a practice like yoga or somatic movement, and we learn to consciously and patiently release the tension from our bodies. So
Amen.
it's an example, a symbol of surrendering our thoughts, our misperception to the vision of God.
That's why I think one of the most powerful lessons is in my defenselessness. It lies my safety, because if I'm not spending all this time believing my thoughts, and I'm not spending all this time protecting myself, because I'm not invested in thinking that every little thing that happens to my body is a threat to my existence, and and the only way I can really be defenseless is that I really know the connection to the God self within. That's really real, and my thoughts about the world and my body and all that are not real.
Yeah.
And that's what the course is always bringing me back to.
Yeah. So I would
so,
summarize. Go ahead, Michael.
so to I identify correctly our individual dharma, it has to come from a thought I think with God.
Well, another way is, you
Does that
know,
make
when you're when you are really responding to your dharma, you know it. It is a thought that you think with God. You feel it
right?
with you feel it as your essence. It's like your essence is expressing itself.
And the reason, one of the reasons it's from a deeper source, is how calm you feel, how just totally centered, how peaceful you feel.
Yeah,
And when you're in
why.
that place, it's like Michael Wilson being able to talk to the person with the gun and not have fear.
And Jesus, when he's chasing out the money changers from the temple, he's not angry.
Yeah, my sister said that to me. We were talking about that, and she said, sometimes it looks like Alma. She was an Alma devotee, or maybe still is. Um, Said, sometimes she gets angry, and then she said, you could see that she's looking like she's angry at this person, and the next minute she's turning and smiling, because it's something she's doing as a service to the other person, to let them know care, whatever the reason, but it's coming from a much different place than when my ego feels threatened.
Yeah. So I think if to summarize lesson 51, this last sentence on number 4, I think is a good one. My thoughts are meaningless, but all creation lies in the thoughts I think with God.
Yeah, my thoughts are meaningless. Yeah.
So I'm going to end here the meeting, and I think we've got a good discussion. This is going to make a good recorded lesson.
Yeah, this is good. Were you recording it?
Yeah.
Oh, good. I think it's a powerful. I think I think what came out was very powerful.
Yeah. So we can continue to use this format, and I think it's going to work out pretty well.
Yeah, sometimes we may not have as much to say that has that much punch, but who knows? I'm open to it.
If we're thinking with God, I think it'll work out pretty well.
Yeah, if I can keep myself focused on that.
So have a great day, and I'll see you tomorrow.
Thanks for sharing. I really got a lot out of this session. Thanks so much for it.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.